You're listening to the Public Health Entrepreneurs Podcast with your host, Dr. Charlotte Huntley. Greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining me on this episode. My name is Dr. Charlotte Huntley, and I'll be your host. This podcast is relatively new. However, I've been podcasting for quite a while, since 2017. I'm a public health entrepreneur, and I have over 20 years of experience in healthcare and public health. And I've been supporting a lot of entrepreneurs along the way. So this podcast, we'll be exploring a variety of topics from getting started to finding clients, offers, sales, marketing, leads, systems and productivities, all the things that will help you build your confidence as an entrepreneur and help you grow the business of your dreams. I'd like you to follow or subscribe whichever app that you're listening in right now. Make sure that you do that so that you do not miss any episodes. If you're on our website, make sure that you subscribe to our newsletter so that you don't miss out on anything between the episodes as well. All right. So this particular episode I'm excited about. Now, you'll hear me say this probably on every episode because I love podcasting, but I really do enjoy answering questions. So on this episode, we're going to dive into another question that I receive very often from people over the years. It never goes old, it never grows cold, but people are always wanting to know, how do I get started? Which I think is a great question, but it's also a loaded question because if you remember in the first 2 episodes of the podcast, I intentionally set those episodes first. And one, we talked about what is a public health entrepreneur? And the next one, we talked about what is a public health consultant? And you understand that this is broad. Public health is broad, entrepreneurship is broad, and we brought them together. And so simple question like, well, how do I get started? Can just have my mind running in all different directions because it really depends on what you're going to be doing, right? But over the years, working with so many different professionals across the public health spectrum and folks that have all different types of ideas about getting started, I have come up with sort of a guide, a list of tips that I think are going to be helpful for anyone getting started because I've answered this question so many different times. So I'm going to go through those with you on this episode. And then I'm going to also tell you at the end how you can get a copy of this guide for yourself. All right. So let's dive in. Now, I guess I want to add to this a little disclaimer because this is not an all-inclusive list. Don't think, okay, these are the 10 things I need to know. These are just the top 10 tips that I think will help no matter where you are. Maybe you've taken a few steps and you feel a little stuck, or you just truly don't know where to start because you've heard so many different things and you've seen people do it so many different ways. And that can make it really extra confusing when you're trying to figure out what to do for yourself. So this is not an all-inclusive list of tips, but these are the top 10. And I'm going to go through those because I think that it maybe will be a little helpful then as you hear this, as well as receiving the guide. All right. So if you're watching this video with me, you're going to see me kind of moving all over because I've got notes to make sure that I don't go off topic. And then I've got my screen sharing I'm going to do here with you to make it a little bit more engaging and also to just kind of help reiterate and kind of lean into some of these tips. All right, let's dive in here. All right, so let's start with my first tip for you. Remember, this is not all inclusive. So we're just going to, in no specific order as I share these as well. Okay. So the first tip that I'm going to share with you is to identify a niche. You may say niche. I say niche. It depends on how you want to pronounce the word. We won't go into that. So identifying a niche. So this is important. And this could take us, we could spend the entire episode just talking about this, but we won't. When you think about a niche, think about it in terms of a population that you focus on, or maybe a problem or issue that you focus on. And that's kind of niching down of all the possibilities. Of course, in public health being so broad, you may be interested in multiple different populations, interest areas, focus areas, conditions. But let's just look in terms of thinking of niching as focusing, narrowing this down to a specialized area, specialization, a positioning that you can place for your business. So think about the who or the what. Like, who do you care most about? What are those issues or causes that capture your attention the most? Variety of niche areas can just go all over the place. But think about also your expertise, your background. Where are your strengths? What do you bring to the table? What are, especially those of you that spent a lot of years in working in the field, you've probably worked in multiple industries and you've got maybe a varied background of expertise, or maybe you've been in one area for 20 years and you know it extremely well. Well, you also know kind of where the gaps are and where things are lacking. But what area do you want to focus in on or niche down to? Think about expertise. Think about your passion, because this is your business. This is the business of your dreams. So this is something that you get to do. You get to decide who to work with and how to serve. So it needs to be something that you're connected to. You have some feeling around this. It matters to you. You think about the market demand. That's important, because just as you probably are aware, just because there's a problem and it needs to be addressed, it doesn't mean that there's money to go along with that solution. It doesn't mean that the organization or your target area is willing to pay or invest in getting that solution. So it needs to be something that there's a demand for. And the potential for innovation. I think that that's important to remember, because sometimes, especially we talk about public health and how we are looking to be more innovative. We're trying to be more progressive. We're trying to change, advance. There's a lot of open areas there for innovation, especially if you even think about cross collaboration with other industries. So choose a niche that aligns with your interests and your skill set, where you feel that you can do meaningful work. That could be, I'm going to give you a few more examples out there. Also think about not just the problem, but also think about the people. And I think the more you niche down, the better. It makes you more relatable. I'm going a little bit ahead. I'm going to dive into some of those a little bit later on my list. But think about population. So maybe by country, a specific country that you're most passionate about, you want to niche down to, a region of a country, maybe a gender that you want to focus on, maybe an age group, maybe children. If you think of, I love children, I want to work with children. You can even go further than that. Well, what group of children? Are we talking about babies, infants? Are we talking about preschool children? Are we talking about early elementary age children? Are we talking about teenagers? You follow along. There's so many different ways that you can niche. You can think about women's health issues, men's health issues. There's so many ways you can niche when you think about gender, age, geographic location, and so for even ethnicity. So think about how you want to niche down, identify your niche. That's really important. That's probably, I'm not going to say my favorite, because everything on this list are my favorite tips, but this is really important. This can go a long way in getting started, is just identifying a niche. Okay. So I'm going to have you think on that for a little while so that I, don't get too sidetracked here. But identifying a niche is important. All right. My next tip for you is to develop a clear solution. That sounds like so easy to do. Okay, I'm just going to jump out here and develop a clear solution. But what I really mean by this is clearly articulate your value. Okay. The value, what you bring to the table. Think about the value of think of it as problem solving. We talked about this before. We're solving some sort of a problem. So your solution that you're bringing to this problem needs to, of course, address your niche. It needs to be aligned with your niche. And it needs to improve the quality of life. It needs to offer some sort of cost savings to that target audience. Make it, maybe there's an addition to the productivity. There needs to be some part of your solution that's clearly advancing in a way that's moving toward improved health. Okay. So whatever that solution is, it needs to be clear what you're doing, how you're solving this problem for this niche that you've identified. And then I guess the added part of that is how you're different from even your competitor. Think about that. Now, I think of competition as healthy. There is really no competition in public health because we're all trying to advance this mission to improve health. So, if you think about this competition, I want to speak to this just for a moment here, a little bit more deeply. Think about in healthcare. When you go to your primary care and you have a problem, something's hurting, something's not right, and you go in and they assess the situation, they may decide that, okay, there's a problem with your potential problem with your cardiovascular system, or maybe your GI system, your gastrointestinal system. So they're going to refer you out to a specialist. So your family practice, your primary care is going to decide, your practitioner is going to decide, okay, you need to go to this person this cardiologist, because they can really look more deeply and more closely at this heart issue that I have kind of identified for you. Or maybe you need to go see this gastroenterologist, the GI specialist, to see what's going on with your intestinal tract, right? So they know these people that are specialized in these niche areas. Does it take away from them as a physician? Not at all. I think that when you are in your business, when you identify your niche and you have your clear solution and you know how that differentiates you from your competitor, then that provides a lot of collaboration. So I'll give you a very specific public health example. When I started coaching at the very beginning of my business, I was coaching people that were focused on their career advancement. They were looking for their career opportunities, their ideal career situation, and transitioning into that. And they were developing a strategy either from grad school to their first, position in public health, or they were transitioning from one area of public health to another area of public health. But they were looking for that job. They needed career guidance. After the first few years, I really fell in love with entrepreneurship, and more people were really asking me about more coaching around getting started with their businesses and how to start as an entrepreneur. So I shifted over to that. So after I did that, when people asked me about, what about career coaching? Well, I referred them to other people who were doing career coaching, who were offering career coaching services. So as you develop this identify your niche and then develop your clear solution, you make it easier to differentiate from the competitors, and then you all can then have that opportunity to collaborate. So I went a little deep on that, but I just want to make sure that you understand delivering or developing that clear solution it needs to align with your niche, and it needs to be a way that also can differentiate you from your competitors, which are your friends. All right. So let's go on to the next one. My third solution, or tip, I guess I should say, tip for you in this list is to create a professional brand. This is a great one. We talk about branding a lot. So really, when you think about your brand, you've got your niche, you've got your solution, your brand needs to align with all of that. So if you're leveraging, let's say, for example, you're going to a conference, you're speaking, let's use social media because that's where people think about it the most. If you're leveraging social media to get some traction and attention on you and building your business and especially early on, then if your niche is, let's say, women's health, and you have a clear solution around this area, say it's reproductive rights, and you're really focused on women's health, then when you're on social media, I'm going to even say I love LinkedIn, and you'll hear me a lot talk about LinkedIn, the need for LinkedIn. You'd be using LinkedIn throughout this podcast. So get used to that. You may have other platforms that you use as well, but LinkedIn and others. I won't say others and LinkedIn, but I think LinkedIn is primary. And if you only choose one, that's actually a great thing. Choose LinkedIn and go all in on it. But if you're leveraging social media, okay, you're on LinkedIn, then you want to join conversations, aligning with this example, around women's health issues and specifically reproductive rights. Interject your thought leadership on these posts around these topics. That's leveraging that platform to highlight your professional brand. People will get to know you for what you do, who you serve, your solution. that's what's it's about your personal, professional. So as you engage even with your friends and family and engagements that you're involved in, even in your personal life, you want to have that opportunity to align with your professional brand. So this professional branding is sharing about how you talk, how you interact, how you engage. Everything about your business should be around this niche area that you're focusing on, as well as this solution that you've created for this population. So your professional brand, essentially establish this strong personal brand as public health consultant by showcasing your expertise, your achievements, your value proposition, really aligning with your niche. Okay. All right. The next one. So if you're counting, this would be number 4, build a strong network. And sometimes we talk about network, people go, oh gosh, I don't like networking. I don't want you to feel that way if that's what you just did, or if that's how you felt when I mentioned that. Get excited about that. This is the business of your dreams. This is something you get to do as an entrepreneur, whatever it is that you're creating. So it's your opportunity to share with other people about what you do, how you serve, the problem that the solution that you have for this problem that you're targeting. It's exciting. So you want to build a strong network of people who understand and know what you do, who you serve, how you help. It could be a collaborative sort of engage. Even when you think about the competition, and using air quotes here, you want the professionals in your niche area to know who you are, what your unique value proposition is, and it's a sharing. It's a synergy. It's a way of I think one of the best ways, depending on the business model you end up going, if you're a consultant or whatever direction you go under this entrepreneurship umbrella. But I think having a strong network of people that understand what your niche is and the solution that you have, the value that you add, is really important. And I'm going to add here that this is from colleagues, previous coworkers, colleagues, a whole list of professionals. Maybe you work coworkers, it could be clients, previous clients. If you're kind of pivoting, it could be people that you're in the same association with. You go to conferences, you want to network and get to know people, meet people who are similar. They don't have to do the exact same thing you do. I think some of the best things is when we kind of overlap in these different industries. But when you go to conferences, but let's not overlook family and friends. It is so important that your family and friends understand your niche and your value add, the solution you have, because they are going to rally up. They like to brag about you and talk about what you do. So make sure that your network and they're part of your network. Communicate with them how you support, how you help, so that they can bring the right people to you. Again, networking on LinkedIn is high value, and I highly recommend, and I'll go a deep dive on that on another episode, but build a strong network. Professionals, experts, organizational colleagues, families, family members, friends, and neighbors. I was really surprised how many of my neighbors understood what I do in my business, especially during the height of the pandemic. As a public health consultant, especially being an epidemiologist, all of a sudden people really understood what that meant, because my neighbors were asking really good questions during that time. So building a strong network is really, really high value. All right, the next one on this list would be number 5, is validate your idea. Sometimes this is overlooked, and we can't overlook this. So validate your idea. Like I mentioned earlier, just because it is important does not mean that your target audience would actually pay for that solution. It doesn't mean that it's not important, but you need to make sure that whatever solution you're offering, your target audience is willing to pay for that. That means that they're motivated to solve that problem. If they're willing to pay for it, they really want the solution. And that, once you validate that, that can save you on significant resource of, time investment, money invested, before you go too far into whatever your project, your plans are. You want to have a way to validate your idea. All right, I won't go into that anymore today, but maybe we'll save it for another episode. Okay, number 6 on my list is start small. And and then gradually scale. So I love this idea. Sometimes, depending on what you want to do and what direction you go, it may require investment right up front, but still try to start small. I love the idea of starting with your expertise. You're a walking uh, golden gym. Like, what's a high value gym? That's you, and you don't realize it. So you already have so much to offer to this, whoever your potential clients would be. Think about starting small and building in a way that allows you to grow and have meaning, do the meaningful work and have great impact without burning out. So I'm really looking out for you here. If you desire to really be like a solopreneur and not really have a team, that is okay. You can be the one producing the solution, delivering the solution, or creating whatever it is, but at least have some scalability around how you can automate some of that process, or maybe bring on some administrative support in the team and not maybe other consultants in the team. But maybe you want to have a team. Maybe you want to have a team of consultants. You want to have work you want to create a business that is scalable so that you can bring on other people and it could be growing and having impact, and everything does not center around you individually. If that is your desire to build a bigger business and build a bigger enterprise. But if you want something small, at least be able to think about scaling in a way that you can use and leverage automation, or in a way that you're not burning yourself out. We're not going to get on a hamster wheel and just run and work 50, 60 hours a week and just create this awesome business, but then be of no use and burn out and hit a wall. So really think in terms of starting small and scaling. And that also means starting with, if you're at the very beginning, start with one thing. I cannot emphasize that enough, because if you're looking at what someone else is doing and they're 10 years in and they're doing a lot of different things and they've got team, that's not a fair comparison to think, okay, well, I'm going to start and do what they're doing. I would caution you against doing something like that, because you're kind of setting yourself up to hit a wall, and I really don't want that for you. All right. Okay. Number 7 is market your services. Develop a marketing strategy and promote your services. And that could be any number of things. It does not mean that you have to jump out with a big ads budget and start running paid ads. It may mean that for you, but it doesn't have to be that for you. I think that, again, going back to your immediate network of family and friends, that's like the best place to start. Make sure that everyone in your immediate network understands what you do and who you serve, because those are the most valuable connections you have. They already know you, they like you, they believe in you, they're excited for you, and definitely engage with them and leverage your immediate network. And then as far as social media, if you're not, your personal accounts, whatever you have right now is your personal account. But with starting a business, if you have not already jumped into starting all these social media platforms, I caution you against doing that at the very beginning. Just start with one, LinkedIn being the one. And I'll tell you more in a separate episode why you'll forever hear me talk about this, but there are a lot of reasons why you really invest in LinkedIn when starting your business. But you want to think about how you're going to leverage these platforms. Where are your ideal clients hanging out would be the best question to ask. So when you're clear about your niche and you're clear about who you're serving and who might be your ideal client, who's going to pay for your services, then where are they hanging out? And that's where you need to be. So that's when we think about marketing your services. If they're going to be at this big industry conference, then that may be a good place for you to have a booth so that you can engage with your, more of your potential clients. But marketing your services is really important. You decide what that looks like, but that needs to be something of high priority at the beginning. And once again, I'll say, when you're at the very, very beginning, make sure that you're leveraging your friends and family. And that really has nothing much to do with social media. It has more to do with maybe a couple catch-up meetings, a coffee or a Zoom call, something like that. All right. Number 8 is focus on impact and sustainability. I'll remind you, this is the business of your dreams. Profitability is important. It needs to be profitable, meaning, bringing the revenue with the least amount of expense to run your business. Sustainable, as we think about sustainable solutions and programs and services offered throughout public health, we talk about that all the time. We need to think about that in terms of your business. Whatever it is that you're doing under this entrepreneur's umbrella, it needs to be sustainable, something that you can continue for the long run, whether it's the system that you have, the team structure you have. Think in terms of profitability, something that can be cost effective and affordable and sustainable and profitable for the long run. So that way it's very meaningful work for you. And then the impact. You see the impact in the community that you're serving, your niche area, right? Something that you can see what the change you can see your role in that change, right? So that's important. That's really important. That'll get you going. That'll keep you going. And when things get really rough, and they will, because that's just the nature of business. It ebbs and flows. So I really like that, the impact and sustainability focus. All right. And stay flexible and adapt. I will stay here just briefly and remind you of just thinking about the pandemic and how the need to be flexible because things constantly change. And think about when we have crises like emergency, natural disasters, fires, hurricanes, tornadoes, things are changing quickly. We need to be able to be flexible, and we have to adapt to those changes. And that's so important in business. We can have a great system and things are working, but all of a sudden it can change, and we have to be able to shift and adapt and keep our pulse on what's new. Now, that's different from chasing every new thing that pops up. That's not the same thing, but we need to be flexible. What works for your business for 2-3 years may suddenly not work anymore. You need to make some adjustments in the year 4 and 5. So just remembering to pack a lot of flexibility is really important. And finally, number 10, I will say stay committed to your mission. This is where the heart-centered piece comes in. When you're identifying your niche and you start at the very beginning, that's why it needs to be near and dear to your heart. It needs to be something that matters to you. I'll say that phrase often, what matters most to you, what gets your attention, because that will keep you going. Commit to it for whatever period of time, but that mission. And oftentimes you have to remind yourself of what your business is doing and who they're serving and what the change is, because it's bigger than just you, the individual, and that helps keep you moving. So staying committed to your mission is incredibly important and valuable, and it will help you in so many ways in the long run. So starting with that up front, getting clear about what that is, and then write it out or keep it clear in front of you or something you can easily reflect on, because it will help you so much. All right. So those are, again, not my only tips, but those are my top tips for you right now in terms of getting started. Remembering there's no one size fits all, but these are things that will help you the most in getting started or getting unstuck or getting to that next step, whatever it is you need to do. Even if you're like leveling up, refreshing over some of these things, reflecting over some of these things to refresh your mission and your clarity is really important. We'll come back to this quite often because it's something that you kind of need to hear more than once, but I encourage you to visit the link in the description with this episode or on the show notes page for this episode. To find how you can download, and we can send you this guide that we've created, what I've just gone over with you, and you'd like to have it for your own reference. Okay, so thank you so much for tuning into this episode. It's a little bit longer, but this is probably about the length that we're hanging out at for most of our episodes. The first two are really short. They're kind of reference episodes, bite-sized pieces. And I'll try to keep most of them there, but this one needed a little bit of a deeper dive. So we'll see where we level off in over the weeks. The first batch of episodes are a lot of these questions that I want to respond to and answer. And I get them all the time. So they become really good episodes they're really good ones to share and for us to refer people to when these questions pop up. So there is one more thing I'd like to share with you before we wrap up. Our website is Public Health Entrepreneurs with an S. So publichealthentrepreneurs.com. And from there, you can click on the podcast tab. You'll find the show notes. It's by the same episode numbers. And in the show notes for this episode, which is episode number 3, you'll find a link to get this top 10 tips for getting started guide. Okay, just make that super, super clear. It's also going to be in the description for this episode. So if you're listening to this and you're an Apple podcast, you can probably look in the description and just click on it there. It'll take you straight to where you can get the download this guide. All right. One more thing. This is the one thing I'm going to ask of you before we go. And I'm really just asking you to help us spread the word about this podcast. It's a simple ask, I think. There are easy ways to do that. If you're in a podcast app right now, you can just share it out to some friend that you have and through a text, or super easy to share from one of the podcast apps that you're listening in right now. If you are on our website, publichealthentrepreneurs.com, you can share our website with a friend. And finally, if you are on Apple Podcasts, I would really appreciate a review. You can just take a moment and write us a favorable review and let us, that helps other people decide, oh, okay, maybe I'll check this out. This may be worthwhile. You know how we are. We always check the reviews of something, right? So I would appreciate that. In any way, whatever way you decide to share this episode and this podcast, I appreciate it. I appreciate you very, very much. All right. This has been a lot, but hopefully it's been high value. I've really had a lot of fun sharing it with you. So I look forward to the next episode and the next topic. All right. Until next time, have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you for listening. Visit publichealthentrepreneurs.com to learn more.